Everyone, new tonight at 6, we now know the name of the man shot and killed by 4 Fargo police officers yesterday in Mapleton after officials say the man came out of his home holding a rifle. The Cass County Sheriff's Office says 35-year-old Andrew James Martinez was pronounced dead at the scene. Officers say Martinez was suffering from a mental health crisis prior to their arrival. Deputies were called to the house in the 500 block of 5th Street in Mapleton yesterday morning for gunshots heard by neighbors. When deputies arrived outside the home, they say they also heard gunshots. Negotiations with Martinez to surrender peacefully went on for more than 4 hours. And just before 3 p.m., Sheriff Jesse Johnner says Martinez walked out his front door holding a firearm when officers fired at him. The case now lies with the North Dakota Bureau of Criminal Investigation, and today Valley News Team's crime and safety reporter Bailey Hurley spoke with legal experts all across the state on what evidence will be important in this case when deciding if those shots were justified.
As a former Fargo police officer himself, Chris Redmond, now a criminal defense attorney, understands the stress of the men and women working to keep the streets safe, saying using force is the last thing an officer ever wants to do.
You're forced to make these split-second life or death decisions, oftentimes with half information or incorrect or imprecise information.
And while he can't comment specifically on the Mapleton incident, he says when it comes to the investigation, there isn't one piece of evidence that will be looked at more than others. Adding, while most assume body camera footage is the end-all be-all, it oftentimes still leaves questions.
Body cameras only show a small viewpoint what the officers see, and sometimes that can either be incomplete or misleading.
Redmond says in a case like this, any comments a suspect made to officers will be an important factor for investigators, as whatever was said could have caused fear or safety concerns for officers once faced with that person.
The legal basis for an officer or really anybody to defend themselves is if they have a reasonable fear of serious bodily injury or death. So if they're expecting somebody to come out guns blazing, so to speak, and that person then appears, that's pretty reasonable if they're in fear for their life.
He says that fear is where the investigation has a subjective component to it, as it's up to the officer to paint a picture of what they were feeling and thinking in the moments before they fired their weapon. Redmond adds no case is ever cut and dry and says it's important for the public to be patient while investigators put these pieces together. Bailey Hurley, Valley News Live.
The names of the 4 Fargo officers who fired their weapons have not been released. The North Dakota BCI says it's never investigated 3 officer-involved shootings at once.